In this video, you learn how to consistently make optimal choices as far as fretting notes and chords on the guitar. It is absolutely crucial that you use logical fingering for what it is you're going to play, and often it comes down to the context as to which fingers you use. A lot of people go with what feels easy first, and often this is the incorrect way, or this is the way that's going to really make something hard and forever hard to do. So it's so important, and we will look at a number of different playing situations you'll find yourself in and what are the best finger choices to make in each of those particular contexts. Hi, this is Simon Candy from AcousticGuitarLessonsOnline.net, and in this video you're going to learn how to make the most efficient choices when it comes to choosing what fingers to use to play particular things on guitar. We'll look at three key areas for doing this. That'll be notes, single notes, chords, and harmony. When playing notes and chords on the guitar, which fingers you use comes down to one of two things, or both things. One, what have you just done before you're going to go into that particular thing and you're wondering what the fingering is going to be, and what is happening next. So what's happened before, what's just happened, and what is going to happen after. You need to have a real clear idea of the context that you're in, because that will dictate the fingers that you use. And we really want to look at it from what is the most efficient fingering, not what feels easy right now in the moment, but what is the most efficient fingering. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to approach notes, chords, and harmony and know exactly what is the best fingering to use. So let's get to it. Let's begin with scales. So major scales, or 3-note per string scales. It's really important when you play these particular scales that, for example, there's basically one of three ways you're going to fret these particular scales. It's either going to be 1, 2, 4. I'm playing an A major scale here. It's the first shape, but it's either going to be 1, 2, 4 with a stretch between the first and second fingers, or it's going to be let's see, that's going to be the case on the next string, but then we go to 1, 2, 4, where we don't have any stretch between the first and second fingers. Still 1, 2, 4, but we don't have the stretch now. And that continues, and then 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. So in that particular shape, and in fact any of the 3-note per string patterns, you'll have all combinations of those. Okay, it's either 1, 2, 4 with the stretch, 1, 2, 4 with no stretch, and 1, 3, 4. You want to be consistent with that. Okay, now I see this sort of thing quite often where people go 1, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. To try and get your third and fourth fingers to stretch the distance here is much harder than the first and second fingers. First and second fingers can spread much easier and much further apart than 3 and 4. Okay, so even if it feels a little uncomfortable, 1, 2, 4 is the key here, and then across the with the stretch, and then 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. Okay, that's how you're going to play most of your 3-note per string full scale shapes on the guitar. Now, sticking with scales here, pentatonic scales. So let me take an A major pentatonic scale here as an example. Now you'll see a scale like this, in a book or online or wherever you're looking at it, scale diagram, and you'll see that it will tell you to go 2, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, and then it might say 1, 3, 2, 4, 2, 4. And yes, you can do that, but that's not really a practical fingering for the most part. I can see the logic here because typically when we play on guitar, we've got 4 fingers, first, second, third, and fourth, and they can typically lay across a 4-fret span. So on the guitar we have positions. So the first position is the first, second, third, and fourth frets. The second position will be the second, third, fourth, and fifth. Third position will be the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and so on and so forth. So when you're playing in any one position, like I am here, the fourth position, that's where my first finger is over the top of the 4th fret. So even though I start on the 5th fret here with this scale shape, it is the 4th position. And then see how I can just then have a finger allocated for each fret. And if there's a note in that fret on that particular string, I know which finger it's going to play. So that is good logic. And for a fair part of your playing, follow that, but it won't always be the case, and this is where it depends on the situation, right? This top part of the pattern here, when you use this top part of the pattern, you're never going to use your second and fourth fingers. They're weaker, and you're never going to do that. You're going to use your first and third. Okay, if you're playing little licks within that pattern, I would use my first and third fingers, but even if I'm playing the scale, up and down, practicing the scale, I would use a more practical fingering. And I would sort of come across a position to get the top part of the scale pattern and then back. So I'm just sort of moving up a position. Now I'm in the 5th position here. And then I shift back down to the 4th position. An example of how you might fret something depending on the context. If I have a little riff that's going to use the top part of this pattern, but it's going to then come back down into, let's say, pattern 1 here, then I would use my 3rd finger to slide up in my 2nd, and then I come down into pattern 1. But if I'm going to do the same little slide, but the next little riff is going to be within pattern 2, staying within the pattern I'm in, then I'll use my 2nd finger. But if I'm going to end up going down here afterwards, then I would use my 3rd finger most likely. So that's just a little example of being aware of your surroundings. What's happened before, what's happening after. Pattern 4 is another one. If I play pattern 4 here, you'll see it sort of like this in a book. But I would play it more with my 1st and 3rd fingers, because that's typically what's going to play those notes when you are actually using the scale to create lines. Chords. How do we fret chords? Well, there are pretty standard ways to play chords. However, don't set them in stone, because it won't always be the case that you'll always play chords the same way. So there's a few different examples, but let me show you G here. Now, for the most part, you might play a G chord like this, with all 4 fingers, 1st, 2nd on the lower strings, 3rd and 4th, and the 3rd fret on the top 2 strings. Or you might play a G chord with just the 3 fingers, like so. However, you can also play a G chord with your 2nd, 3rd fingers on the bottom string and your pinky on the top string. Why would you do it like that when you can do it like this? Well, it depends on the context. First off, you might find that you're going from this G chord to a C chord with a G on top. So it makes sense that's the most efficient way. You can do it like this. Okay. Yes, you can do that. But, I'm probably going to do that if it's that particular sequence. If it's a normal C chord, I probably won't. Okay, but I would. Then you could go to an F chord and back to a C. There's a particular song that does that. Right, so you got your G with the G on top, C, G on top, G and a C to G. Do you know what the song is? Let me know in the comments if you know what that song is. But that is definitely how I would play that song. It is how I've played the song before in the past. Another reason for playing G with just these 3 fingers, in fact, another way you can play G is to even get rid of this 2nd finger on the 2nd fret and just block that 5th string out. So you just take it out and you just get, that's pretty much any AC/DC stuff you see, because Angus Young is obviously distorted. He wants to clean the chord up a bit. It's going to be a bit muddy if he includes this G in there, and he'll often just make it a power chord actually and take the B out altogether and just play it like this. So there's another way that you could play a G, or you could just use your 3rd finger. Now, if I'm going to play a G chord and I want to get some scale tones, melody, embellishments, whatever, then I'm going to play it like this, where it frees up these 2 fingers to do that. If I play my G chord like this, then there's nothing this side of my index finger to play those notes. So I really want to free up these fingers, have them sitting over those frets so that I can add embellishments. If we look at like a G bar chord, or any bar chord, I'll play G here, of course we can play it like this, but sometimes we might want to use the thumb over the top to add embellishments. Now, some people find it hard with the thumb over the top. Okay, that's fine. If it's not for you, then it's not the be all and end all, but it's an example of a different way to fret a chord. So how you fret chords is very important and comes down to context. And sometimes you'll play an A like this with your index finger barring because you want to sort of do a shuffle, that type of thing. Okay, and what about when you're not playing chords or notes exactly, but just harmonies, like 2 notes at a time? A very common harmony on the guitar is a 6th, and we often play them on non-adjacent strings, this type of thing. Okay, you hear it in a lot of songs, little harmony lines being played. So most of the time, I'd say almost all the time, I'm going to play this particular harmony, the sixth, with my second finger staying on the third string. So here, there's two basic harmony shapes with the sixth when we play it like this on the guitar. You're either in adjacent frets next to each other, or in the same fret. Either way, the second finger, as I go up here, notice how my second finger stays on the third string throughout, and I'm just interchanging my first finger with my third finger depending on the shape. So first finger here with my second finger on the third string for this particular shape. Then the second finger does move up, but it stays on the string as my third finger comes in to play the next two sixth harmony shapes to stay diatonic, to stay in key here with G. And then I go back to the first shape, but the second finger is still on the third string. And then I'm back to this shape again. That's much better than sort of doing this and then using that and then maybe this and then maybe that. You know, if you want to try and have some consistency, something linking together. So when you get little runs, that works, you know, pretty well because there's limited movement. Not as much movement happening if I was using some other sort of fingering for that. The same is true for like 10th harmony. So this is where you are similar sort of thing, but you're playing further, you know, the interval's larger. So I typically would play 10th harmony if I'm playing on this particular string set, being 6 and 3, 6th and 3rd strings. I would, in a similar way, keep my third finger consistent. I'd use it for each of the two shapes you get with 10th harmony. Okay, so third finger staying on the string throughout, and then I'm just interchanging my first finger with my second finger as I move up. It's just a logical way. Now, if you're not going to use 6th or 10th harmony, that's okay. Just take the lesson here of thinking logically what creates least movement. That's pretty much what you want to keep at the back of your mind, even at the front of your mind the whole time. What is going to create the least movement? What's the easiest, most efficient way I can get from one position to the next with whatever it is you're doing? You've got 10th harmony on the 5th and 2nd strings too. Sometimes I just use my pinky, and sometimes I'll use my third finger. So I will sort of interchange between those two, but whichever one I go with, I keep it consistent and then swap. In fact, with this sort of harmony here, well, it's 10th harmony, but on the 5th and 2nd strings, I tend to use my pinky and my first finger throughout. I'll just put them together there. That seems like a kind of odd way to fret that out of context, but when you're doing it within the context of playing sort of 10th harmony, it makes a little bit more sense. But you could also use your first and third fingers. But I would do that over this, where you sort of, you know, there's more movement, more fingers needed. Can you do it with less fingers? That's another way that you might think about it. A particular piece, just thinking of harmonies here, that comes to mind that I did spend some time on a while ago now, like years ago, but that I spent a lot of time on really deciphering what would be the best fingering was Barré in E minor. I've actually got a tutorial on this on the channel, so I'll link to it in the top right corner for you, and you can check it out if you're interested. But it's full of harmonies, and it's like, it's all over the place. But I spent a lot of time thinking, what is the best way to do this? Because there's so many ways you could do that, and there's ways that really could make it hard work for you, or there's ways that can make it much, much easier. So that's a really good piece to kind of, you know, work with and think about fingerings, because you're not just playing clunky chord shapes, you've got all these, it's all harmonies, and you're moving around the same area, but all these different shapes. So, okay, so that's something that you could check out if you like, and see. I think I talk about the fingering in that video too, but it'd be a great exercise for you to see if you can work out what might be the logical fingering. Keeping in mind, of course, what's happening before, what's happening after, and what's the easiest way to do this, least amount of fingers, most efficient way, because that's going to not just be easier, but it's going to bring fluency to your playing and allow you to play much faster. If you like this video, you'll love this ebook complete with video examples called 10 melodic fingerpicking patterns you can learn in 10 minutes or less. Do you struggle to make the fingerpicking patterns you learn on guitar sound like music? Perhaps it's because you believe in one or more of these fingerpicking pattern myths. 1. You need to know a lot of patterns to have your fingerpicking sound musical. 2. Only advanced fingerpicking patterns sound musical. Easy patterns are too basic to sound any good. Or 3. There is a magic pattern out there somewhere that once found will finally have your fingerpicking sound the way you want it to. None of these myths are true. This is because fingerpicking patterns alone are not musical. They're technical. It's what you do with the patterns that will determine how musical they sound. In this ebook, you learn how to make the most boring fingerpicking patterns sound amazing instantly. Plus, the simple trick to make advanced fingerpicking patterns easier to play, and the thumb and one finger trick that's so simple and will have your fingerpicking sounding pro in no time. Click the link in the description below this video and download your free ebook complete with video examples, 10 melodic fingerpicking patterns you can learn in 10 minutes or less. You'll have it in your inbox within minutes. Let me know in the comments below what acoustic guitar topics you would like to see covered in future videos. I read all your comments. I love hearing from you, so don't be shy, drop us a line. If you like this video, then hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and of course hit the all-important notification bell button. Therefore, YouTube can tell you when I've released a new video. This is Simon Candy from AcousticGuitarLessonsOnline.net. As always, thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.